Survivor Season 41 airs tonight on CBS. I've never watched a lot of TV through the course of my life. I did more so when I was a kid growing up, and then I kind of got away from it. Even moving into my own place in my 20s, I didn't even get a TV for the living room, and that's just how I prefer to live. Just, invite someone over, kind of hang out with them, not zone out into Netflix and TV and electronics. But one show that I have loved for my entire life is Survivor. Now, it aired in 2000 with season 1 Borneo, and I was 6 years old at the time. I was born in 94, so I didn't start watching from the very beginning. I started watching around season 11. It was midway through Guatemala, and so once I picked up in the middle of Guatemala, I got hooked on it, and I was about 11 years old at the time, and I was able to understand the concepts of the show a lot more. So after Guatemala finished, I went back and watched Borneo through Palau, season 10, and then when CBS aired season 12 Panama, I picked it up and watched ever since. Going away to college for a little bit, I didn't watch those seasons while I was away, but then dropped out, going into some debt, came back to San Diego, was my hometown, and then rewatched those seasons. I forgot what era that was. I think it was like the late 20 seasons, or like mid to late 20 seasons. I think I was in college, something like that. But then I've rewatched those, and now I've seen seasons 1 through 40, and tonight season 41, and we could do a lot of discussion on Survivor in terms of the production and reality TV in general. A lot of people will say, oh, well, they don't really film it there, it's all fake, it's all scripted, which is not true. They do actually film on location. They do give them minimal resources. More so, they give them more now than they did back in the day, but it is a 39-day journey where they're marooned on an island or wherever the location is, and they vote people out every 3 days. This new season, season 41, has a less amount of days, but just the general concept of Survivor going back to the beginning. Season 1, Borneo, 2 tribes, 8 people each, 4 men, 4 women, all walks of life, voting each other out every 3 days. They're on an island, have to build a shelter, find food, boil their water. They're given limited resources. They can win certain things in reward challenges, immunity challenges, and so on. And every 3 days they vote someone out. So once 16 gets to 10, the 2 tribes merge, and then from 9th place to 3rd place, those 7 people voted out form the jury, and the final 2 that make it, those 7 vote on the final 2 of who should win the $1 million. And the show has changed concepts and themes through the seasons, and they've added twists here and there, and the show has evolved as the gameplay has evolved. And like I said, we could talk all day about reality TV in general or production interference, because that's one thing that comes up with any reality TV show, with production manipulation, production interference, and that's a whole discussion we could do on Survivor. But one of the reasons that I've enjoyed the show is the gameplay, the brilliant gameplay that combines human nature with sociology, with psychology, because the way it is, we're all self-serving to a degree, and we're all going for our own paycheck. We're all going for our own $1 million, so to speak. When we go to a job interview, we don't go for the other applicants. We go for ourselves. So if there's 20 applicants for the job that you want, you go for yourself. You're not wishing luck onto the other people. You're going for your own glory. You're going for your own money, going for your own position, going for your own paycheck. So when you have this concept in Survivor where the 16 castaways start at the beginning, 2 tribes of 8, and it dwindles down, only one's going to win the $1 million. So you need everybody to get through the game, and you also need to get rid of everybody for you to win the game. And then as you're getting rid of people and purposely causing them to lose $1 million, you have to pitch your case to the jury, people you voted out, at the end, that you're deserving of winning the $1 million. So it's a brilliant concept, because it's like life with the duality of how you're always affecting people both positively and negatively in a subjective sense. So the thing about Survivor is that anyone can win or lose the game. White, black, Mexican, Asian, gay, straight, any religion, man, woman, 6'5", 5'2", every interest and walk of life. And so there's no formula to it. So it's a numbers game. It's how we group up. It's sociology. It's psychology. It's ever changing. It's a fluid game because things are changing in the moment. It's like the butterfly effect, where you affect one thing, you say something or do something that has small effects here, and then those small effects create other small effects, which create bigger effects, and it's an ongoing ripple effect. And that's what's brilliant about Survivor, is because there is no set strategy, there is no set way that it's going to go. And it's all up to the individual castaways on that season and how people group up, because the way life is in general outside of the game of Survivor is that people do have those group associations. So whether it's the typical high school, college, football players hanging out, basketball players hanging out, baseball players hang out, band kids, the kids who get A's, kids who get F's, kids that party, kids that don't party, the emo kids, the goth kids, the kids that are tall with other kids that are tall, short with short, certain tiers of attractiveness, people hanging out, just race, religion, anything that groups us together, politics, conservatives with conservatives, liberals with liberals. That's just what we do in life. We group up with people that we think are on our path or similar to us, or people that we think we relate to, and we form these groups in order for us to advance to the next day, because we got to work with other people. So we're always pointing out things in other groups of people that we need to get rid of, or we criticize, or that's the enemy for whatever reason. And so these group associations are heightened in Survivor because the way the format of the game is that only one person's going to win the $1 million, and you need those group associations to a certain point to advance yourself, but everybody else has to go at some point in order for you to advance. So it really plays off the duality of life, where everyone has their own give and take and their own way of how they affect somebody. So it can all be perceived differently. Every person's piece can be an advantage or a disadvantage, no matter how you look at it. So if you want to take something like looks, like a good-looking man or a good-looking woman, someone would say, oh, well, that's an advantage. It can be in a certain sense, where you look at the social context of things, where a good-looking person might have more social rapport of being able to make friends easier. People want to be around the better-looking people genetically and just biologically. But then, too, that's also a threat, because that poses you taking numbers and connections away from other people, so now you're a target. So the thing that gives you an advantage on this side is the disadvantage on this side. Or being really tall, like, okay, you have automatic leadership aura because you're 6'5", so people kind of look to you just without even knowing anything about you as, okay, taller person, leader kind of thing, as opposed to a guy that's 5'2" that might be looked down upon automatically just for that. So you think, oh, well, the taller guy's the advantage, but it's also the target in another sense. So this game of Survivor, it's always 50-50. There is no right person to be, wrong person to be, advantage, disadvantage. It's all perspective. It's all how the people group off at that one point in time, and how they vote someone out, how they choose the groups that they hang out with, or who they associate with more, and who they gun for to vote out. It's super fascinating. It creates really great television because it's taking those components of human nature and sociology and psychology and combining it with a game formula that's just brilliant television. And so I've really learned a lot about life in general just from being a kid growing up watching the show, and just understanding how we're all kind of the same. We're just different pieces on the board. Like, we're all different chess pieces. It's a constant chess game. Some of us are kings in certain contexts, pawns in other contexts, knights in one context, just going down the list of chess pieces. So in a certain context, someone can be worth more or worth less than another person, but at the end of the day, they're all just one piece. And every piece, no matter what the hierarchy is perceived, you're trying to take out another piece. Every person has that mode of kill. Every person has that ability to take from someone or to add to someone. So it's that balance of what you're giving, what you're taking, and as the journey unfolds and the story unfolds, convincing the jury that your story is deserving more than the other person's of winning that $1 million. How are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
So the bracelets here are 12, rings are 14. Feel free to try anything on.
Okay, thank you. Little English.
Muy poquito español. Yeah, right now I'm selling... De nada. Right now I'm selling for my business La Jolla Cove Headwear that I've done content on. This video in particular on Survivor, it's a little bit different than other content I've done on this channel, and with the premiere of season 41 today, depending on the search results and people that are fans of the show, this might come up to people that aren't subscribed to this channel. But people that are subscribed to this channel, I have done videos on the business that I run here in La Jolla, California. It's La Jolla Cove Headwear. And my first item that I started this business with. I started this summer, June 12th, my birthday. I turned 27, started my own business, and I started my headwear line. First one was the Buff line, which Survivor uses to distinguish the teams. That's how I've always known of Buff, because of Survivor. And so to start my headwear line, it was only fitting that I did a Survivor used item in the Buff. So what I did for my Buff line, I'm wearing the water right now, and I put La Jolla Cove on it, where I'm at here in San Diego. I did an element theme to it. So I did like a fire, water, earth, and air element theme using the CoolNet UV buffs worn on Survivor. And so I've always liked this item myself in general, but then also being on one of my favorite television shows in Survivor, I just had to start the business with that. But yeah, so it's like you're going, in the game of Survivor, you're going through this journey of 16 to 20 people, depending on how many they cast, and you want to win $1 million. Everyone is there to win the $1 million, and everyone else that you're playing with has to get eliminated in order for you to win that $1 million. So how do you do it in a way where you're forcing the other players to lose, doing that in a way so that when you get to the end, they deem you as deserving this $1 million. So it's very complicated to play, because how do you cut someone loose and make them lose the game, and then try to convince them that you're worthy of winning the game over the person that you're standing next to? So there's a lot of strategy involved with it, a lot of psychology, a lot of human nature with why people vote a certain way or why people group off into certain sections. And I might do more videos on this. I think Survivor is a fascinating topic, and not just for the reality television. That's not the part that I loved about it, and even the survival aspect. I love the classic seasons 1 Borneo through All Stars, season 8. I love the survival aspect of the show, and I wish the show would incorporate that a little bit more, but I understand from an evolutionary gameplay perspective how the game's just going to evolve, and it's going to be less the survival aspect and more just the social game. But I like all seasons, because some people do those lists too of, oh, this season was better than another for whatever reason, and those are interesting videos and interesting viewpoints to listen to. I know a lot of people, for example, they go to season 5 Thailand and they hate that season. They think it's one of the worst seasons of Survivor. I don't look at the seasons in terms of best season of Survivor, worst season of Survivor. I think the whole show in general is a brilliant concept, and I look at every season chronologically based on where it was, what it taught about strategy of the game, and also about strategy of yourself in your own life, of how you're affecting people and impacting people. Because in the first season, when it was fresh and people didn't know what it was, if you lied to somebody about, okay, you're going to vote this way, and then you end up voting them out, that was taken very personally. Like, the line between reality and the game wasn't as distinct as it is now. So people would typecast you as, oh, that's just probably a liar, or that person's fake, or that person's this. And then as the show has evolved and the game has evolved, it kind of leads to a more in-depth strategy and analysis to where, oh, everybody's doing that. Everybody's going for their own paycheck. Everybody's going to win the $1 million. So it's all perspective in terms of how we talk about it and how we talk about the moves and motives of other people. So watching the show from seasons 1 through 40, I love the show mainly for the strategy, the psychology, the sociology, the human nature aspect, the brilliance of the design of the game. That's the main reason that I love the show. Yes, the survival aspect, yes, the challenges and the contestants and all of that, but it's understanding the contestants in a way of how that plays in with the strategy of the game is what I love, because it's really such a brilliant concept. You start with 16 people, 2 tribes of 8. They have to compete against each other, and they eliminate each other one by one until there's 2 or 3 left standing in the finals, and the previously voted out people form the jury, and they decide who of the finals wins the $1 million. And so it's a game where you're constantly the good guy, constantly the bad guy in someone else's perspective, which is kind of like how life works. You're always the hero in someone's story, but then the villain in someone else's story, depending on the perspective of what they thought it gave to them, what they thought it took from them. And at the end of the day, you're hoping that enough people in society respect you as a person, respect your story, and respect the moves that you've made over time to get to where you're standing, to award you a job, to award you a paycheck, to award you a relationship. So I've learned a lot about life just from watching the game of Survivor. So I'll definitely do more videos on this topic on Survivor. I've been thinking about doing this in the past, and I did some Survivor videos on my YouTube channel when I had first started. I started this channel at 21, and I kind of scaled back a little bit in general on my videos, and then I picked up YouTube again very recently. Now that I'm older, I'm 27 now, and got back into YouTube recently, my thoughts on things are a little bit more nuanced. I'm a little more mature. I understand what I want to say and how I want to say it a little bit better, understanding the content I do on this channel and also the game of Survivor. So I think I can make some really awesome videos on that, because I've been a fan since season 1. Borneo, Richard Hatch won the first season, up to season 40, Winners at War, where Tony won the 40th season. And now we have Survivor season 41 airing on CBS tonight. So like I said at the beginning of the video, I've never been a big TV person. When I was a kid, I watched a lot more TV in terms of cartoons, coming home after school, but my teenage to adult life, I've not been a big TV person, didn't even have a TV in my house when I had my own place. I moved back in with family in March of this year, 2021, because I wanted to save for a camper van. I live here in San Diego, California. It's a little expensive, and I just like nature and living off the land anyway, so I went back home instead of living in my own house with no roommates, moved back home so I could save some money to get this camper van. So from March to June, I had a pretty good amount of money saved, but then I thought, wait a second, I'm already a vendor out here at La Jolla selling this tie-dye for a nonprofit. I'm going to use that money to start my own business. So that's why I started La Jolla Cove Headwear. Today, actually, I started this coffee table. Let me see how that goes. Right now, I have CBD hemp-infused coffee on the table. First day I'm doing this, and if the hemp-infused coffee, the CBD, if that doesn't take off, or if people don't know, don't care, or don't want that part of the coffee and they just want a regular cup of joe, then I also have other brands that I can do and charge 3 instead of 5. But like anything, you add and you learn and you subtract from your business model. I started with the buff line at the beginning of the summer, fire, water, earth, and air. A lot of that attributed to Survivor because that's where I knew about the product from. And I've added hats, sunglasses, magnets, stickers, artwork, jewelry. But like anything, it's like I'm talking about in the concept of Survivor, the concept of the show, we have to make moves in order to make money, feed ourselves, get ahead to the next level of life. So how do I convince somebody that my product or my service is worth paying money, for them to open up their wallet and actually hand me money? Why should I win? It's like a teeter-totter. Why should they lose money? Why should I gain money? Why should I lose money? Why should that person gain money? The same thing with Survivor. It's like there's 16 of us, or 20, or 18, depending on how they cast it, and one of us is going to win the $1 million. Everybody else has to lose in order for me to win. So how do I do this in a way for me to win, to where enough people respect it to award me the vote? Very tricky game to play, just like life. And so even in this video and other videos I do on this channel, it's funny because people will come up as I'm here working at the beach and interrupt the video because there's customers walking by, or potential customers. And so I have other videos where I'll like pause or talk to a customer, and if it turns into a sale where they're here for a while, we start talking, then I'll delete the video that I'm doing and just start over. But sometimes if they're just browsing real quick, I'll keep it in the video and then they'll walk on. But it was great timing for this topic of the psychology of Survivor. I had a woman come up earlier in the video that said that she doesn't speak a lot of English, and I've worked at a hotel here before at La Jolla Cove, and then I went out here and worked at a tie-dye organization for a nonprofit. I've done a public service job for a little bit, and so I've made sales and talked to people that don't speak a lot of English, Spanish speakers, Chinese people that don't speak any English, and at the hotel we're just like playing charades. He needs the air conditioner to be a different temperature, and I don't know whether he's saying higher or lower, so we're like pointing and using charades and fingers to get the message across. Or he's trying to buy something and he's Chinese, doesn't speak any English, and so he just shows me a calculator on his phone, and I just type in the number of how much something costs and he points. But it's those social dynamics. It's how we got to get by with each other. So Survivor, they put 16 to 20 people on an island. You got to build your own shelter, eat food, minimal resources they give you. So the sleep deprivation, the food deprivation for 39 days, voting someone out every 3 days. It's a very intense social game. Very Lord of the Flies-esque type of show. One will survive. You start with 16 or 20, it dwindles down. You want to win the million, you're starving, you haven't had much sleep, and the psychology of it is brilliant. and I could do a lot of videos on this, which I plan to. I might even do a whole series 1 through 40 depending on how I want to go, but any Survivor fans, to stay tuned for season 41. It's going to be good.